And
We'll
how?
see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Memes of Destruction presents to you tonight the discussion of Is the Pen Mightier Than the Sword? With Vash, the Token Dargan, and Straight Sith Male. We are broadcasting to you live out of the great United States of America. And this discussion was inspired by a post-Red Eye discussion between one Cabbage Patch Bastard and Mr. Doku XL about the pen is mightier than the sword. It was thrown out there. There were counterpoints. There were more counterpoints. We found out 25 minutes later there really wasn't much disagreement. However, I found this to be a fascinating discussion, and this may actually be an ongoing series because there are a number of folks that are not here right now, such as Cabbage and Doku, who actually I'd like to have the discussion with. But we have our excellent experts from across the internet here tonight. So what say you two? Vash, what's mightier, the pen or the sword?
I would have to say they both have their influences, but the pen will always be stronger than the sword.
Well, in how so?
Well, do soldiers go over and attack areas just on a whim?
Well, their commanding officers have pens.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Well, what if the commanding officer with said pen actually happens to have that person in a compromising position? Perhaps they have the advantage. Perhaps they have a 40 to the head of whoever their commander is.
Yeah, but somebody's in control over that person.
And who has control over that person?
The person that has the pen.
Is it? So what happens when you have a dictator that's being overthrown by their own people? If the military ends up staging a coup, aren't those the people with the guns?
The
Or
military
swords?
is overthrowing that person, or I mean, if the people is overthrowing that person, it can be either or. It's probably because someone that was speaking, someone that used their speech, that used their pen to influence said revolution to happen.
So what you're saying is we're being overthrown by a bunch of wizards.
Yeah.
All right, then. So, SSM, what do you think is more mighty? The pen
I
or the sword?
I believe the pen is more mighty than the sword as far as legislation go, but up close personal contact, I would say that the sword is mightier.
Oh, so you're defining that context matters.
Exactly.
Well, this is 2018, my man. This is the current year. I mean,
It's current
context,
year.
well, according to a Scottish court system, according to at least one magistrate, the context doesn't matter.
But no, throughout history, the power of the pen has been mightier. Has been okay, not mightier than the sword, but it has been something to use the
So
sword.
you'd say it's equal to or greater than the sword.
Yes, I would say that in the context of legislation versus actual
Well,
battle.
you're always going to have people that are savages that will use their brute force, but the thing is the pen influences people to unite against said savage.
Yes, that is my point as well.
Well,
So
that is very true. And actually, after about 25 minutes of slightly heated discussion between Cabbage and Doku, is actually Cabbage that went back and said, no, I was just using it as the hyperbolic statement it was meant to be, because actually I believe that was coined around the time of the Magna Carta, the signing of the different groups basically helping to unite the United Kingdom. Although apparently what happened shortly thereafter, whoever gained the power then went around and butchered everyone else that signed it. So it's one of those things, yeah, the pen is mightier than the sword, but then the sword ended up
Killed
defeating all
everyone.
those that used the pen. So it seems like one of those paradoxes there. It's like kind of like the chicken before the egg thing, even though we all know it was the egg.
yes,
Was
yes.
it the egg or was it the chicken?
Well, it doesn't matter whether it came out of a T-Rex or an ostrich, man. They both lay eggs.
Yeah, but the chicken has to be there to lay the egg.
No,
That's not what we're talking about, though.
Oh, well, all I'm saying is I have more evidence to support that the egg is more powerful than necessarily the pen is mightier than the sword.
The egg is more powerful than the chicken.
Well, these are just the rantings of a reigning lunatic hiding behind a blue eyes white dragon avatar. So take it for what it's worth.
Okay, man. That's all of
us. well, hey, if it is all of us.
Well, not all of us.
Really that different?
Not all of us with blue-eyed. I think, what is it, like 15% of the entire world population is blue-eyed?
Well, hey, you know what? I chose this avatar because the Blue Eyes White Dragon was the ultimate engine of destruction. So since memes of production was taken in all its variant forms, I'm like, I'll do this. I'm like, oh wait, I have blue eyes. Oh, I'm kind of whitish. I'm like, oh, I like dragons. This works.
Fair enough.
You like dragons?
Hey, takes one to know one. But Hammered Spud brings up a very valid point. Hashtag the Daedric Mace. That is a very important thing. Although, hey, Matt, hey, don't bring up the 5-piece summon of Exodia. We only saw that once. Didn't work for the rare hunter, but that's another thing. He has wiped out Blue Eyes White Dragons. That is fair.
But yeah, the pen has always been as mighty as the sword because the pen points to the sword.
That they made an LGBT version of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Pink Eyes Gay Dragon.
That seems kind of lazy to do. Did you just take some words and just Mad Libs them?
Yeah.
So this isn't even a thing. You're trying to troll me.
Just a little bit.
Well, welcome to the internet. But no, going on this, it's like, all right, so what ultimately makes the decisions? Because even if you were to have a dictator with the power of the pen behind them, basically if they are in charge of a nation and they have the monopoly on force per se, I mean, aren't they still operating from the fact if they go completely beyond the pale, if they actually get the majority of folks to turn against them, as well as the standing military just saying, all right, this is too much, we're going to, at this point, choose to go the way of replacing the executive that's in power. I mean, isn't that just the swords just end up pointing to the one with the almighty pen? Even if you are Sauron, if you get enough swords against you, it's not going to matter, essentially, if you're acting godlike.
Yeah, but it takes the pen to influence the sword.
Okay, so it influences it, but at what point does the pen lose control?
When the people start revolting.
Okay. No, that historically has been true and stuff. But if we add the scape of the media and just the modern transmission of data, a lot of times maybe things were allowed to go on for much longer because folks weren't informed. Although to the counter to that as well, we could say things may go on for longer nowadays because things may have a particular skew, a slant to them, because we all have our own opinions. We all have our own bias and stuff. And if you have enough folks saying everything is fine, and it's like, well, there's a lot of smoke going on. What's happening here? No, it's fine. Was that some flames there? It's like, no. And as soon as they start coughing and stuff, it's like, there might be a fire going on. We might want to check that out. So let's see.
Okay, well, I got into an argument with some people earlier because they were talking about the climate change. And what I was simply saying is that climate change is a thing, but there are also climate deniers and climate extremists. And
go on.
And people got mad. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to tell you that there are different sides of the idea behind this. And clearly, yes, humans do create something, but at the same time, it's not as drastic as certain
We're unsure about what we as human beings putting carbon and other things into the atmosphere, how much of an impact that's having aside from the Earth. It's like, the temperature on average has changed over time, given our entire history. It has been changing. This is absolutely true. We had some really hot times. We had some really cold freaking times. Like these are things that we all agree on. We're just disagreeing on how much of an impact. And I think the smartest thing.
I was around during the November storms up in a few years back up in New York, and I was around in the year before those November storms. And the funny thing is we broke 2 separate records. Yes. One for the least amount of snow in a year, which was none. And then one year where we had the most amount of snow, which was 9 feet, and you could only stay wherever that blizzard happened. You were staying there for about 3 days.
All right, that's fair enough.
Well, that's the thing, man. It's like you don't know. It's like, all right, I've been up here in Massachusetts, and I remember there were years where it's like, all right, we had a blizzard. There were 20 inches of snow. It's beginning of January. 3 or 4 days later, it was 70 degrees out for a couple of days, and I was out jogging in some cranberry bogs with one of my buddies from D&D. And it's like there's almost no snow on the ground because it more or less all melted, and it was 70 degrees out in January. I also remember probably about 4 years or so back where we got about 20 inches every single Monday. It was freezing cold. My freaking little like Asian neighbor next door, he's up on like an 8-foot snowbank trying to like shovel like the berms into his yard and stuff. You're like, what the hell is going on? You can't see around everywhere. It's so dangerous. And now it's like, all right, we're kind of having a moderate winter. We get some snow. Sometimes it goes further north. Sometimes it goes further south. It's just like, seeing as humanity, we've been only here for like a blink of an eye, and the entire perspective of things, it's like, we only have so much of a sample size.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I do think that we are contributing to more CO2 and carbon going into the sky. Yes, I know that. But it's not as drastic as they're pretending. I remember.
Well, I mean, back then we were also burning coal and using quite a few unclean methods of like. We were. I mean, we were using coal and a lot of other things.
Do you guys remember the intro from Captain Planet?
Yes.
I think that's the only mimetic we need.
He's a hero.
Gonna take pollution down to 0. They're remaking. I really hope they don't ruin it. No, but if you look back, it's like, dude, that was a show from the 90s. And I think a lot of folks here, or in the audience, they kind of remember the 90s. They kind of remember some of this stuff. So it's all right, we know these are stuff. These are things we need to take care of. And a lot of folks are like, nobody knows about this. Oh my God, we need to do absolutely everything right now.
Meanwhile, M. Bison is like over there trying to keep our ecosystem and everything. And he's an asshole with a bunch of Did you know that was M. Bison's whole thing in Street Fighter?
That was his whole premise? No, yeah. I didn't even read up on
Captain Planet.
Yeah, he's basically Captain fucking Planet.
He's Nazi Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Wait. Where was Bison from again?
M. Bison from Street Fighter.
Was he from Russia or Germany?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't remember.
Is he Hitler or is he Stalin?
I got to look at this again.
I was going to say, does it really matter? Because I honestly don't. Because I remember Zangief was from USSR.
Well, yeah, he's a giant fucking Russian wrestler.
Yeah, he's freaking awesome, except he has no freaking projectiles.
No, he didn't. But you know what? If you were good with that character, and I was not good with Zangief. But
dude, a full spinning pile driver will take over half your health. You just
I got my
launch it.
People that knew how to use the character, I got my fucking ass kicked. And my favorite was memes. What's the name of the Blanca?
Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
Yeah,
okay, he was also known as Dictator.
Yeah.
It's not telling me his where he's from.
he's just a dictator?
No, he had a location. I'm almost positive they're not trying to memory hole where Bison is from. They're not afraid, are they?
I think they are.
Well, didn't Jean-Claude Van Damme play Ryu?
No, he played Guile, and that was terrible for him to be selected as Guile.
Why the fuck would they let the Belgian play Guile?
Because it's Steven Seagal.
I don't know. I would rather see Steven Seagal with blonde hair with that crazy freaking crop top or whatever the fuck it was.
Well, it was Van Damme.
No, there weren't any flash kicks. That's what pissed me off.
No, he had one. He had like that one kick that he always did in like the 70s, where it does a roundhouse kick and it does like a triple take.
Yeah, I just remember not being impressed. Maybe I fell asleep. I don't know. Oh, I see a cabbage. I see a cabbage. All right, let's toss a cabbage a link right here, just because cabbage doesn't trust Discord, which is not a unwise thing to say or do. But yeah, there you go, my man. Come join us. You were the inspiration, even though there was no actual disagreement between you and Doku. Oh, that was the thing. No, it just went in, and just like the back and forth of it, I'm like, is this one of these eternal paradoxes here? You just keep on seeing things go from one side to another. You see a very valid point, you see another valid point, and just I thought the discussion was amazing. It seemed worth having.
Say, homie, memes. Are you in Boston now, or are you close to the area?
I am in the greater Boston area. It's easy. Here's the thing, man. If you come from anywhere, you try to say where you're from. Oh, I'm from this city, Massachusetts, North Dakota, frickin' Florida.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about like a major capital city, a lot of folks aren't going to know what the heck that is. So it's like, where are you from? Boston! Yay, Boston! Oh, a wild cabbage has appeared.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing when I say Albuquerque. They're like, left turn. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome, Cabbage.
Hello, chaps. How are you?
All right. Here is the birther of our topic of the moment. And I mean, even though both you and Doku, you even stated, it's like, I was just simply using this as a hyperbolic statement. It's like, I'm not saying that.
Metaphor.
Oh, exactly. It was used as a metaphor, commenting on an after chat thing, and Doku, and I'm just listening. And even though you stated that again, he kept going, and then you kept firing back. I'm like, this discussion is amazing.
But that's the problem. If you're going to interpret it literally, then you are never going to comprehend it within the context it was said. So it's just going to be circular.
Exactly.
He's making a definitive statement, but then I'm just saying, well, yes, but that's not the way in which it was presented. It was presented as a metaphor, and then you just end up going around, and that's the problem with it.
Isn't that what seems to be happening to a lot of shit nowadays?
Oh yeah, standard for especially social justice and all that. Yeah.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying.
Although I think there are, and I have to say this, and in all honesty, I find that Americans tend to be far more literal in their interpretation of things. You know, maybe that's why, you know, less people understand sarcasm or, you know, parody or, you know, satire or something like that.
Well, we understand if we're familiar with it and we find it entertaining. Case in point, there was this little film that came out, I believe, Team America, along with quotes like "America, fuck yeah."
Yeah, but I mean, that was so blatant. There was no subtlety to it. That's almost like subtitles. You know what I mean? Just to that's like the guy in the audience who puts up the applause sign to let you know when to applaud.
Well, like comedians that have to explain their joke.
But Cabbage, what I'm saying is take the mimetic from Team America. There are a lot of folks that ingrain to pretty strongly. Take that general kind of logos from that, like the whole, yeah, we're America and everything. And if somebody from somewhere else in the world says something not so nice, if you keep the whole mantra, America, fuck yeah, so fuck you, it could start some shit.
But most people, but the whole point of what made it funny, and that's why it's satirical, is because there are a lot of people who do that, you know, who believe that, and that's what makes it funny. You know, like the ones who, you know, chant USA, USA, USA. We see it all the time. So it's
Well,
not really satirical. It's more an
Cabbage.
exaggeration.
No,
that,
no,
know,
no, no individual such as that would go around and be very loud and active on something like the internet, on social media platforms. And full disclosure, I may have not have started 2 or 3 USA chants at a Donald Trump rally.
All I'm saying is just, you know, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't really equate to satire.
No, but it's the same. I say it's satire, but it's the general. Maybe it's the pathos side of it, the actual just passion for just like oneself, one's country. If somebody says something that you don't like, if they feel like you're coming at you, all of a sudden some of those folks may respond, and then other more neutral folks try to give their input, and very strong statements have already been made, and it just spirals into just chaos.
Well, it can do. It depends on the people, I guess, and how they're doing it. But there is a distinct difference between, you know, well, I think you must identify that between the way the British sort of express themselves. You know, this sort of, you put quips into things and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just different ways of expressing.
You say it in a
I'm not saying one's better than the other.
Well, Cabbage, we often just start yelling and screaming at each other, whereas many of the Brits, it's like you said, that quick quip that's built in, just along with just the general flow of conversation. That's why a lot of Americans are like, did they just insult me? They're not yelling at me. They're still being very polite to me. So, but Cabbage, isn't that like what's gotten the UK to where it's at? Folks are so polite in general. They're often not raising their voices and screaming at each other until more recently that like the UK's gotten to the point it's at.
Okay, I found his origins. It's Thailand and Brazil are the 2 locations that he's in the
is this Shia LaBeouf?
No,
Bison.
I was going to say that's actually interesting, because is he the only character with 2 locations listed? Because I do remember part of the Thailand part and the Brazilian reference. Didn't he do something with like Blanca or something?
He's represented as pretty much an SS guard.
Roger that. Okay, since we've wrapped up that little loophole in Street Fighter lore.
Yeah, sorry, that was bugging me.
No, back to so is the pen mightier than the sword? And the example I'll give here is, okay, you might have a chief executive in power. I'll take France, for instance. Macron might be the head of the French government, but it's like the people are pissed off, and like there's chaos and stuff, and like didn't like a police officer or something like fall victim, get killed or something? I saw something.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I saw it was getting very violent and stuff, and like, could this be something? I don't know if there's a path in the French like law system to like remove a president or something like that. Do you think like that could be what's going on? People are just getting so pissed that they're turning their swords to the man with the pen.
Well, I suppose there always is the guillotine. You know, it's always the method of last resort.
That's not still on the books, is it?
Well, I'm sure they've got one in the basement somewhere. They dust it off.
Well, I think we still have the electric chair on the books in like some municipality. Doesn't mean we use it.
No, I'm just saying it can be reintroduced, can't it? Laws can be made.
Yeah, but that sounds kind of regressive.
Anyway, people who are pissed off, really at that point, they're usually pissed off because they don't feel that they're being legally represented, right? Like America, no taxation without representation. Perfectly sensible, reason for wanting to gain independence. So if the French, and so you did something which was technically illegal, so you don't think that they'd be willing to do it? It was illegal to cut kings' heads off before, but we did it anyway.
Oh yeah, that was a pastime.
Yeah, it was fashionable at the time. It was a very short period,
I mean, even the guy that was that played another random factoid about that with the guillotine. The guy that played Saruman was actually witness to one of the last beheadings.
What, you mean Christopher Lee?
Yeah.
Yes, Christopher Lee.
Wow. You really saw a guillotining. Holy shit.
Hey, Cabbage, isn't he a knight? Or is that no? Ian is a knight. Never mind.
Yeah, but no, I think he did get a knighthood. He is Christopher Lee now, I think.
Did he? What?
Yeah.
Cabbage. What does it take to get knighted?
You have to have excelled in your field in a particular way. And there are different kinds of knighthoods, though, depending on what you're getting knighted for. So, like, there's a knighthood for entertainment. There's obviously knighthoods which come through the military, you know, for exceptional military achievements. And then you've got civil service ones, which are the, you know, for the people who are, you know, the.
Or so on.
Yeah, so there's three different sort of categories. Well, then there's a fourth one, which is you know, the aristocratic one, which is, you know.
So,
but for example, like everyone who's when you're prime minister, when you finish being a prime minister, or during your prime ministerial standing, I think you become automatically a member of. Oh God, they have a special ceremony. It's the Knight's Garter, I think it is.
oh,
it's a very, very specific one.
So you're like an adjunct Knights Guard member or something.
No, it's a Knight's Garter. I don't know why it's a garter, because I always think of garters for chicks. Well, but
weddings happen.
Well, you hear garters and you see a cute little thing on a chick's leg and you kind of want to bite it off.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the whole point. It's an acquisition thing. It's like capture the flag.
All right. Hey, this is a family stream. Oh no, it is absolutely not. But yeah, no. So what's going on? So like, is Macron going to be able to maintain some semblance of order in the country, or is this are we going to see like some concessions made? Because this happened in Brazil. We had Miss Lovely Kitty on, I believe, and she happens to be a Brazilian gal, and she was down there. She's like, oh, things are getting really shitty. The truck drivers are pissed. People are pissed because they're not getting their stuff, and then people are pissed that the truck drivers are pissed because they like the truck drivers. So like, are we going to see something like that, or is this going to be complete anarchy?
If Macron even says like that he's going to fix the problem, well, I mean, and don't forget, this is about the diesel at the moment, but I mean, his reputation, his rating has been going down for a long time because of the immigration. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, basically. So in terms of him coming back, I mean, no, if there was a general election, no, I don't think he'd get anywhere close to the votes that he'd need. As to whether or not the French can unseat him, I don't think there's a mechanism. It's not like a parliamentary system where we can just, you know, have a change of leadership. Yeah, we can have a vote of no confidence. I don't think the French have that.
Is that just because enough French folks still remember the history of France being, if you go too far, we ain't going to give a fuck. So it's like, yeah, we don't need this on the books, but it is part of the history. So I think anybody that's in high French office has to remember that, man. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying it's a thing.
Well, if that's the case, then I don't understand why our leaders are doing half the things that they're doing, because they're totally contrary to, you know, cultural heritage. So I don't think they do have much cultural awareness, you know?
Well, isn't that just people playing to the interests of others as well as their own interest?
Yeah, and that's what's blowing up in his face. That's why, you know, with the mass immigration, you know, all the other crap that they've been, you know, having to implement, additional taxes and things like that, you know, to cover all these costs, and then the increase in the fuel duty. I mean, they're claiming that it's because they, you know, it's going to be greener. It's not. It's because they're fucking running out of money. I mean, France is a basket case. I'm telling you now, when Britain leaves, they are going to be no better than Spain or Portugal financially. Because when Britain goes, they're not going to have all the help with their common agricultural policy and all their fucking subsidies that come into their farmers and things. They're going to be right up shit creek.
No, unfortunately, it seems like you guys, the working class, the middle class, don't really have a say in Britain. And I think that's fucking bullshit.
Well, the thing is, we just tend to voice it in a different way than Americans do. You know, like you said, you tend to be a lot more forthright, you know, in your expression. Well, we do it in a different way, which looks like we don't do anything. But if you go back in history, take a look back at British riots, you'll see we have a long reputation of, you know, severe, I mean, severe writing, like police cars being turned over, you know, people taking down police horses and stuff like that. You know,
Well, that sounds like after we win like a world championship or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, like Canada after a good hockey game. But I mean, no, I mean, if you look up, say, the poll tax riots, just have a look at that and just what that was like. I mean, it was insane.
Well, it depends. Like you said, it's usually things that build after a while. And to be fair, being up here in the greater Boston area, we like to refer to it as Titletown, seeing as at least each of our major sports teams, with the exception of soccer itself, has we've hit all the major championships a fair number of times. So it's like, I think the first time the Red Sox and Patriots won, there was some damage. But after that, it's like, well, there's going to be a duck boat rally. We're all going to get drunk and have an excellent time. And then there was joy.
Oh, I mean, you've seen football hooligans from over here. I mean, you've seen how brutal they can be.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, oh, that's just humanity. If you have humans that are very excitable and stuff, very passionate about something, there are disagreements, and when you throw enough alcohol into the mix, well, I mean, it's just we've historically seen how it goes. But to bring it back around, Cabbage, could you actually tell us the story about like the Magna Carta that you were last night? I just want to get comment from these folks because they weren't there.
Oh, well, I mean, there was, because everyone thinks that was the English Revolution. It wasn't. There were two revolutions. There was the first one, which was the Peasants' Revolt, which is when the peasants went down, tried to get the king to effect, well, they basically surrounded London, held its siege around London, and tried to demand, rights and things from the king. Eventually, they managed to fight their way, getting closer and closer. And then he negotiated. He was buried up in the Tower of London, I think, at the time. It was a very defensible position. That was, it was a keep, effectively. And so he was in there. And then, anyway, eventually he was willing to. He claimed he was going to give them some concessions. So he signed an original document. Then the people all went home and disbanded. So then the king came out, and he basically went and found all the people who were being a pain in the ass, during this peasants' revolt, and caused, and just slaughtered people left, right, and center. And that created the second revolution, which was the Tolpuddle martyrs coming down, that then eventually produced the result that we needed, from the English Civil War, where we ended up with the Magna Carta. However, when the Magna Carta was, all the signatories to the Magna Carta, after the king had signed it, he did the same bloody thing again. And the majority of people who were part of the creation of the Magna Carta, they were put to the sword, literally days later.
So
it was,
sword is greater
not like
than
your it's not like your constitution where everyone wandered off and it was all fine. There was none of that. Like literally, people, their castles and everything, or their homes, just burned to the ground.
Yeah, and we're back in the cycle again.
Yeah. But again, you can say, all right, so the pen mightier than the sword. How about the match is mightier than the sword? Because you can do a lot more damage with a match. I mean, we've seen what California, throw a match out of a window in California and you can do an awful lot of damage.
the sheer fact that you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres of the country burning on fire. Our fellow Americans are being burned. And like this isn't all over the news, like constantly. I maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if this was on all the time, I don't know, would there be more resources done? Is there anything that we can do more, or is this just the wrath of Mother Nature?
No, I think they're going to be doing everything that possibly can be done. I mean, the idea that you show it more on TV is going to somehow change, the availability of resources, of people. I mean, there's only so much that people can do in those situations.
That's definitely true to a
to a very strong extent. But is it partially to do with, like, we seem to live in a world where, like, what really catches people's attention are controversial things. It's not like, oh, President Trump has done this. It's like Theresa May has done this today. So it's something that we can argue about. Dude, all I'm saying, man, is how do you argue about a fire?
Theresa May failed to do something today. Well, you can't argue with fire. Yeah, well, but then they shouldn't be looking. I mean, okay, you got to look at what you can do to stop it now. But surely the most important discussion should be, how the hell do we prevent this crap from happening again? And that would include things like allocating budgets for, clearing brush and things like that, dead material. I mean, you're going to have to go into some kind of forest management or something. I don't know.
Well, it's not as sexy as directed energy weapons blowing up cars.
No, exactly.
So, and I mean, no, this is what fills in the gaps, man. And it's like, that actually seems like a worthwhile discussion, because you got so many families and stuff, and like even folks like within our groups and stuff that like have lost their homes and shit. Like, this is affecting people's lives, and if like we could do things to at least prevent this in the future, I mean, hey, the past is prologue. We just got to go on from where we are right now, so we can prevent tragedies like this from happening, or at least reducing the chance, or even having better equipment to define like when there's an emergency. Because 2 years ago, 2016 fire in, I believe it was Tennessee, like my brother showed me this like 15-16 minute video of this dude literally, like, he's watching and he sees like all the smoke, he starts seeing the flames, he's like, yeah, there's no warning or anything on the TV, and all of a sudden cuts to like him, his wife, and his dog in like their Jeep, and they're driving along, and they're literally driving through fire, man. They're watching all the neighbors, trees down, they need to go back, they're driving past their old cabin that's on fire, and it's like, these people, like, if one of their tires went flat or something, dude, they were dead.
Oh no, I heard one way it did. One of the tires did blow out. I mean, it was obviously the asphalt was so hot that it blew out the tire, and they just kept on going. Yeah, I mean, the guy obviously had a lot more trouble controlling the vehicle, but
dude, it's crazy. You're looking at this dude, and you see his dog like behind him and stuff. And the dog's panting hard because it's getting so hot in the car. He just pets his dog. He's like, "It'll be okay, Red. We'll get through this." And they ended up getting through it, freaking God bless. But it's just, you're watching this thing, I'm like, this is like out of a fucking movie. There's a car stopped in front of them. The guy actually gets out of the car. He's like, make sure Red doesn't get out. And he's going over. He's like, hey, dude, move your car a little bit. Move your car. And he's like, well, we dealt with that, asshole. And he's like, we're moving along. And I'm just like, the calmness of this man, he's like, Lord, get us through this. And dude, I have to believe that he was a man of God, because the level of composure he had, I don't know if other folks would have been as calm, as they're literally driving through fucking fire.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get your heart going, isn't it? Yeah,
because you just imagine yourself. It's like, yeah, I burnt myself on the stove and shit. I ain't been through anything like that.
Yeah, it's going to be an awakening.
Oh no, it draws on the general humanity. And that's kind of like what we're talking about here. Like, the whole theory, the pen is mightier than the sword. I mean, we try to take that as a good thing, just because it's like, all right, if we can sign contracts, deals, treaties, and stuff like that, perhaps we can avoid the sword. But it just, his history through and through, it just keeps on coming up that, like, depending on the number of swords you have, if they're pointing in the right direction, I mean, it kind of can make the pen obsolete.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point, which is why it's a totally irrelevant comparison, because a pen being mightier than the sword is just a metaphor for how you can avoid the sword if you just, if you can use treaties. You don't need that sword.
So is it a matter of...
It doesn't negate the need for swords. It just says that it's better to use a pen than it is to use a sword, because, humanity.
Well, so is it more of a discussion of the pen remaining in the sphere appropriate for the pen and keeping the swords at bay?
No, the whole point of using the pen is to keep the swords at bay.
So when it ends up, the pen loses its ability once it has gone past the point of, you basically lose the folks, because if you lose enough people and there are enough swords among them, then they can vanquish the pen. So it's the matter of being good at penmanship, I guess.
Yeah, and it's also creating things which are, which are beneficial. I mean, what you do with a pen, it's like anything, right? It's just it's an inert object. It doesn't do anything itself. It's what you sign with it. So you could sign treaties. You could sign, anti-hate laws with a pen. There's plenty. The pen is not the issue. As I say, it's just a metaphor. And again, we're just going down this fucking literal interpretation and trying to find some reason behind it. It just means you can avoid conflict if you use a pen instead of a sword. Negotiate, that's the whole point, and which you should appreciate, because I mean, you love that faggy fucking Star Trek, the Communist Manifesto.
Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with liking or wanting for there to be utopia, but you still got to operate within the realm of reality, man. I mean, yeah, vanity is nice, but sometimes you need to brush off vanity and show reality here. And actually,
but that's the point. That's the point about the pen being mightier than the sword. It's a case of you can avoid those sort of realities if you take the time and to avoid it. But there are times where the pen is never going to do it, right? Because you can offer somebody a piece of paper and they can just go tell you to fuck yourself. They don't want your piece of paper, and they can just storm on in anyway. Yeah, that's what invading forces have done all the way through history. The pen's only applicable when it's being, when it's welcomed. The sword, on the other hand, imposes itself. You can't impose a pen on somebody.
Well, no, that's fair. It's something that folks need to choose to do voluntarily, or at least have as democratic of a vote as you can. Because, I mean, in order to prevent some outside entity from being maligning you or anything to invade you, a lot of times you'd want to set up different documentation with said pen among the folks that are around you, so you could defend against any type of maleficence.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, again, that doesn't mean that the person who's coming in gives a shit about your pen. I mean, you can go to them and you can offer them a treaty, or they could come to you with a piece of paper and says, just give us all your shit and we won't blow you to hell. So it's either give us all your shit and we won't blow you up, or you don't and we do. So here's a piece of paper, you either sign it or you don't. And if you don't sign it, we're going to nuke you.
Well, isn't part of this playing into the whole theory behind a lot of folks pushing for more of a globalized government or something like that? They want to use the pen to compass all, to thereby make violence unnecessary. At least I believe that's the ethos they're pushing behind it.
Yeah, really? Yeah, right. And the UN's really avoided it.
No. I never said the
UN stopped a bloody war.
I said at least the ethos, the ethical thoughts behind the folks trying to do that. And you know what? That's not a bad ethic to have. But again, universal truth number one, man.
So don't say ethos. Don't mention ethos when you're talking about the UN. There's no ethics whatsoever.
Well, yes, people do terrible things. Yes, I fully accept that. That's why I said we need to brush off at least a fair bit of the vanity and show the actual reality of what's going on. And I go harken back to, it's like, yeah, that might be noble in its intention, but when you're trying to just force it down people's throats, it's like, dude, come on, man. I mean, everyone loves to buy, but nobody likes to get sold. So if you're just trying to force it down.
You see, but that's what the pen is meant to be for. I mean, this is like, for the contracting, for doing contracts or doing treaties, or to ensure that you both get something out of it, right? There has to be some kind of mutuality. That's why the Versailles Treaty was such a fuck up, right? Because there was nothing that the Germans got out of it.
Well, that's
incentive apart from, the only incentive the Germans had was to basically get pissed off and rebuild and then take their revenge, which is what they did,
Oh, no, and that's part of one of President Trump's things that he has in the art of the deal. At one point, it's like, you ask for things that you want along with a bunch of other things. You have the folks that are in opposition to you take away the things that they don't really care about while keeping a couple of things that they care about there. And as long as you keep the majority of things that you care about, they're able to exit thinking that they got advantage of you in this deal, even though you got everything you wanted. It's mutual beneficiality.
Well, you have to know. Well, you have to know when you go into an agreement what it is that you're after, and then after that you pad onto it
No, this is the problem.
In order to
Cabbage, people are padding on everything. It's like, what do you actually want? If you boil it down, I think it's acceptable to a vast majority of people if we just went there. It just seems like a lot of the more idealistic people on whatever side, yes, they just keep on wanting absolutely the moon, and they're trying to shove it down. We'll accept nothing but the moon. It's like, dude, you just need a mailbox in the corner. You don't need it on the freaking moon. I'm like, come on. Go on, man. I'm sorry. Cabbage and I have occupied a lot of space, so go ahead, SSM.
Yeah. Bash, SSM?
Oh.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, no, go on. We were monopolizing the chat.
No, I was listening to you, Cabbage. You were cracking me up, dude.
Thank you. I think. I don't know.
What are your guys' thoughts of this little banter between Cabbie and myself?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much it's which one has the influence, and I think honestly people want to dream, people want to hope that we can get past having to be violent yet. I mean, it just seems to be like Animal Farm, the person that's meant to lead or that's meant to do something gets ran out, and the other person tries to sell you the same idea, but for nefarious reasons.
Yeah, and this is one of the problems that we have, is that most people want to be left alone to get on with their lives, and there are certain people who seek out power, and they're usually narcissists.
Well,
self-important narcissists. Now, they're the ones who look for jobs where they can feel important about themselves. And so, unfortunately, the worst people to give these sort of jobs to are the very people who are applying for them.
Yeah, Cabbie, that's a very fine point. Nah, man, people are fucking retarded.
Yeah.
Well, is it that a lot of folks that we would like to potentially be in charge, they do not seek out those positions because they don't want to deal with all the shit that comes along with seeking out said positions?
Oh,
very possibly.
That is a good point. I don't like having to be the person to be like, hey, you do this and you do this. I hate the leader role. Go ahead, Cabbage. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, but you see, the people like that are also not going to be able, because there is an established system of people like that already in power, right? They're looking for people like themselves, people who are, like, if you've got a corrupt government, then you don't want somebody who's going to come in preaching about how we've got to stop all this corruption, right? You've got to keep, you only want people, adopt people who are also going to be as, malignant as you are. So it naturally, it's like a cancer, it accumulates additional cells with each. And it becomes, malignant.
Well, that sounds like a major problem, and this is actually one of the reasons why I appreciate someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running and being elected to office, because, I mean, what was she? She was an economics major, and her last job was she was working as a bartender, man. So it's like, that's like...
She'll go nowhere, man.
Dude, regardless of what you believe of her politics or her thoughts or policy, this is a story of just a person just coming up that was working at the local bar that was elected to the United States House of Representatives, and, like, that's something to say.
Yes, and why?
He said bar
because
like
of necessarily her competence.
Sorry,
like I said, I mean, you can completely disagree with her, but she beat an established person, one of those folks that you were basically just kind of saying was potentially part of the problem.
No, hang on a second. What were you saying, Seth?
Oh, no, I was just saying that Ocasio is batshit fucking crazy. It looks like she did too much cocaine.
Yeah, and the thing is that she got
okay. Let's face it. Everybody in politics does cocaine.
Well, President Trump
let's
doesn't stay away from those vices.
Let's get that one thing clear. Most everyone in politics, even the motherfuckers that were like, "I'd never do drugs," bullshit. They're snorting coke off of a hooker because that's what they're doing with our tax money.
True. George Bush did, George Bush did and stuff. Yeah, but the thing is, I'd respect them if they were willing to fucking admit it. You know what I mean? Like Bill Clinton said,
President
I
Obama
took the smoke and I hated it.
He did mean.
Who gives a shit?
Well, like I said, you can disagree with a person, but at least they were honest about something.
Memes is right.
Doesn't mean
Obama,
you have to vote for him. I like President Obama. I never voted for the guy because I disagreed with him on a lot of his policy and how he presented it.
I did the
But
first.
it's a difference. It's a
I
difference
like the
between,
person.
asking the president if he has done drugs, right? Have you done drugs? Yes, I have. When I was young, I was stupid. Now, if he responded by, yeah, I did drugs when I was a kid, but, I still do a couple of rocks every evening, then that would concern me.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, oh, Mr. President, Putin has been doing stuff. 9! That's not a good mimetic.
But what I
Now listen here, Putin, you son of a bitch.
a lot of
Remember,
things
Hulk Hogan was going to run for president at one point.
he could.
He may have been able to win.
Yeah. Jesse Ventura was going to do it too.
Oh yeah,
But
Jesse the
Jesse
fake
is a bit of a
concealed
conspiracy
Ventura.
theorist.
Well, Jesse Ventura is Jesse Ventura.
He's cool. I like the dude. Some of the things I watch, he's pretty funny. I kind of feel the same way with him that I do with Joe Rogan. Like, Joe Rogan could kick my ass fucking 3 ways to Sunday, but yeah, he couldn't.
Well, Joe Rogan is also not the
Okay.
person that seeks out just going out of his way to start shit. And I think there'd be a lot of folks that would want Joe Rogan in perhaps a position of authority to do stuff, even if Joe Rogan wouldn't want to do that because it would be a pain in the ass. And we're back to certain folks who we may feel more comfortable with. They don't want to do that because, dude, the amount of shit that you take just being like just destroyed, you're passed on up, plenty of things that are brought up that you never want to see the light of day, and things that aren't even true at times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, you're not wrong, dude.
Yeah, Kavanaugh. Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a politician. That's what I'm saying. It deters, good people because, who wants to go through all that shit? Because you're going to have mud. People are going to throw mud at you. You know that's going to happen.
Hey, full disclosure, you know what? When I was a teenager, I grabbed more than one chick's ass. That was not sexual harassment. That was more or less like, hey. And if she wanted it, she was like, what's up, dude? Or else she was like, no, fuck no.
Well, it's sexual harassment if it's unwanted, and that can be.
Yeah, but you don't know if it's unwanted until you do it.
Means, are you in a relationship right now?
I am not.
You are not. When's the last time you had a girl?
A month or 2 ago.
Okay, that's good. No, but what I'm saying is, man, you gotta meet a girl that you get along with. If you can't, then yeah.
Well, no. Does this go back to context? Because like if you're flirting with a girl at the bar, going back and forth, I mean, if she slaps your butt, does that an invitation to slap hers back? And occasionally you may reach a little too far, and or said gal may have been to the gym and lost some weight or something over the past few months, and you may reach a little. We all make mistakes.
Well, I tell you what, if she slaps your ass and you can slap hers, then if she punches you, you can punch her back.
Well, just because that might be an equal force, and just because you can quote unquote do something doesn't mean you should.
Well, I'm just saying the option should be available.
Well, the same could be said of the ass touching.
Yeah. Well, is that a cultural thing? Are we talking culture here? Because in some cultures, maybe a punch to the face is an invite to something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, memes. What about marriage then, right? Well, what if you're actually in a relationship and the woman is she's a bit pissy about you or something, and you come in to try and make amends, and she's at the counter and you just touch her ass or something. It's like, well, do you have? Yeah, I mean, they used to call it, your marital rights to have intimacy with your partner. Are they all gone as well?
Well, some of the things you're speaking of, I'm no expert, but that sounds like some of the things that are promoted by certain family courts in some cultures.
What, that you shouldn't have physical contact with your partner?
No. What I'm saying is certain marital rights, because I know.
Marital rights. Marital rights were taken for granted. I mean, until recent times, it was sort of like women would say, got to do my duty or whatever. You know, it's like, but yeah, I mean, the fact was, you know, I mean, men knew that if, you know, they weren't intimate with their partner, then their partner was going to get intimate with somebody else and vice versa, right? A hungry dog turns over the trash.
I don't know. Me and my wife we were working at a ski area, and we were working together, and we made out in the walk-in rat quite often.
Yeah, you think? But I mean, like I said, though, if you come in and you slap your wife on the arse, I mean, is that permitted within the context of being in a partnership or, you know, being in a relationship? Or, it's the weird, this is where these laws get really fucking fishy, because unless it's, you know, you have some continuity to it. Now, yeah, if you grab somebody by, you know, the bush.
Oh, you're talking about
that's very different. That's sexual assault. But slapping somebody on the arse, I mean, you could technically call it assault, I suppose.
Well, then every baseball player should be in Me Too.
Well, exactly.
But is it consensual?
They slap them on the ass and they say, "Hey, man, good game." But what if those people didn't consent to that?
Does it mean if it's consensual once? If it's consensual once, does it mean that you can always do it? Or does it mean you have to get consent every single fucking time? This is the ridiculous nature of all of this bullshit social justice crap. You know? That leads you down into a spiral.
Good game, Cabbage.
Yay.
Can I slap you on the ass and say good game?
Yeah, we used to do it with rugby and that. I mean, hell, in rugby, you get very intimate.
If I ever meet up with you,
did you have marks on your rear side from some of your mates?
Mate, they used to tear out things like your underarm hair to get you to release the ball, you know, when you're in a scrum. It's fucking vicious.
Look at the atomic
and that makes your eyes, that gives you your fucking eyes water, I promise you. You will drop that ball. However, you'll also punch the fucker who did it.
But well, Cabbage, doesn't like what you were saying. It's like, does it just go back to context?
Well, but that's the thing. You can't make laws on, you know, like, unless there's context. I mean, the laws should have consistency.
So if you're going to introduce these things which are purely different, then how do we define?
You have things like, yeah, but that's why you have mitigating circumstance. You say, yes, well, I did slap her on the arse, but I have a mitigating circumstance. She's my wife. You know, maybe that would count. I don't know.
Hey, one time I asked a girl, I said, "Hey, nice shoes. You want to fuck?" And she got me.
Yeah, well, women are cheap.
That is the most autistic pickup line I've ever heard. You got some nice shoes. You want to fuck?
I feel like there should have been a little bit more history before then. If you wanted to drop that, I suppose you could. But if you just wander up to somebody that doesn't know you and you don't know them, that I think you got what you kind of deserve, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got fucked.
That was hilarious.
He was laughing as he was fucking her.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, but the thing is, what he didn't say was the fact that he said to her, nice shoes, and then we fucked. But she was unconscious at the time.
No. I said,
there's no consent there, man. So that would be a much different contextual situation.
You got some nice shoes. Now look down at them. Pop!
Hey. Gals often like shoes, and there's nothing wrong with a good pair of heels.
Well, she technically can't say no if she's unconscious.
Yeah, she also can't consent.
Yeah, exactly. So that means that, you know, the prerequisite of consent, I think, is the problem here.
Well, obviously we're still arguing about this and everything. This stream is taking a very rapey turn right now. So just to bring it back around to, it seems as if when we're talking about the pen or the sword and which one might be mightier, it would depend on the context. What say you guys? Let's get some final thoughts on this. I'm gonna wrap this around because I know Mad Dodge is doing some conspiracy theories on the Red Eye coming up soon. So, Cabbage, what say you? Final thoughts on the pen and the sword?
Like I said, it's only a metaphor, and it's about the idea of avoiding using the sword by using the pen. That's it. But if you don't have a sword, the pen's not going to do you any good.
So, all right. Well, it depends on what is happening at the time. So, SSM, your final thoughts, my man.
Same as cabbage. It's a metaphor, and yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you so much. So, Vash, what are your final thoughts concerning the topic of the evening?
Well, what if we stab the guy with the sword in the eye with the pin?
Well,
but he's probably got a couple more people behind him with more swords than you have pens.
Well, I mean, at that point, we're back to context. We're talking about range, proximity, the ability of knowing that somebody
an eye for an eye, right?
Well, and then we're back to Hammurabi's code. So things.
All right. So how about this then? The howitzer is better than the sword. You know?
Yeah, now we're talking an escalation of force, and we have the power of the gods from the olden days and stuff now, and hey, we're back to Ark Survival Evolved with less engrams.
Yeah.
So hey, thank you all for joining me. Those who have watched, those who will watch in the future, as well as our beautiful panel. I wouldn't mind having a few more discussions like this in the future. So just to close out, thank you one and all, and the egg did come first. Peace out, everybody.